Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. If you've been in the Grace and Grit space for a while, you have heard the name Irene Lyon. Irene Lyon is a nervous system health expert. She is also a good friend of mine and someone I admire and respect tremendously. In fact, so much so, Irene Lyon has been on this show as a guest more than any other guest in the last 295 episodes. And that should say something. The reason I keep inviting her back is because I am such a big believer in her mission and her message, which is that nervous system health is the basis of everything. It impacts everything. And yes, when I say everything, I mean everything. Not only does your nervous system impact every facet of your biology, of your physical being, but it impacts every facet of your life. The health of your nervous system will play a big role in how you move through life, how you face challenges and disappointments and failures. It will play a role in the direction you move in your life if you go after the things you truly want for your life or you spend your whole life hiding. The nervous system plays a significant role in every relationship you will ever have, and so much more. So it is worth understanding how it works and how to promote the health of it, which is why I keep bringing Irene back and why I also am such a huge advocate of her program, Smart Body, Smart Mind, which opens for registration in just a few days. Yes, I am an affiliate for this program. It is the only program I have ever been an affiliate for because I believe in it that much. Not only have I gone through it as a student, more than once, by the way, but I have watched many of my own students go through the course and witness the impact that the course has had on their own life. So to say I'm a fan is an understatement. And if you are someone who maybe wants to know more about the nervous system, or you are someone who is just acutely aware that you carry a tremendous amount of stress and you can't seem to get out of your own way, it might be worth looking into. In this interview today, we are going to talk about my experience of going through the program, what the nervous system is, the value the nervous system has to offer you when it's operating from a healthy space. And I want to tell you that if you are someone who is ready to take the leap into this work, you are ready to do a deep dive into nervous system health, and you decide to sign up for this course, I am offering anyone who signs up through my link, it has to be through my link, 6 months of membership inside of my Rumble and Rise community for free. So not only do you get Irene's 12-week program, you're also getting 6 months of membership inside of my own community. And why? Because these two things complement each other so beautifully. Irene helps to set the foundation of nervous system health. And I help women to do the things that help them to maintain the work that they do inside this course. So it's a win-win. I mean, you're getting a ton of value for the cost of this program. So if you are interested in registering, remember it has to be through my link to get that added bonus. And you can find the link by going to graceandgrit.com SBSM. Once again, that's graceandgrit.com/SBSM, which stands for Smart Body, Smart Mind. And also, if you're on my email list, you'll find me posting things on the email. And certainly I will be posting it on social media as well. But without further ado, let's get into this interview. It's a great interview. I feel like every interview Irene and I do gets a little bit better. And we have covered a lot of ground to this point. So I'm excited to share it with you. So Irene, welcome back to the Grace and Grit podcast.
Hi there, Courtney.
Hi.
I'm so happy to see you, as always.
I'm so happy you're here. And this is what, I've lost count how many times you've been here.
100? No.
Yeah.
Maybe 6?
Yeah, at least I think.
5? The
5 or
do the
6.
summits count?
I'm going to count them.
Okay.
I mean, every time you're in my realm, I'm going to count it.
Probably 7. I don't know.
And we haven't quite solved all the world's problems, but
almost.
We're on our way. And it all starts with nervous system health, which we are talking about today.
I agree.
So you've been here many times. Our conversations have evolved. Certainly my understanding of the nervous system has evolved from when I first found you.
Yeah.
And the best way I can think to explain that is I went from a space of, I would say very first, it was a space of resistance.
Yeah.
Because there's that quote, right? That the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off.
Is that a real quote or did you make that up?
No, there really is.
Okay.
It will eventually set you free, but first it'll take you off. And I feel that way kind of with the nervous system because it was all the things that I didn't want to hear, right? That it was slowing down. It was going in. It was taking responsibility. It was reshaping, ultimately, probably my identity. I initially saw it as just reshaping parts of my life, but I think it's literally an exercise in reshaping who you have practiced being in the world. So there was just a lot of work that I was not super pumped about leaning into, which I think is probably the experience of a lot of people you work with, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got interested, right? Yeah. Because I had started to tap into understanding the nervous system enough that I knew there was something there. So I went into interested, and now I feel like I'm in a space of it just being so foundational and so imperative and honestly urgent. I feel like this is an urgent conversation.
Yeah.
Because of just the state of the world, the state of people, the state of their mental health, their physical health.
Yeah.
And honestly, I bought a new car in December, and it's a blue car, and I've never had a blue car. And I thought, I don't see a lot of blue cars. But I bought the car, and now I see blue cars everywhere, right? But that's how I feel when you start to really understand and, more importantly, practice regulating the nervous system, is you start seeing dysregulation everywhere. So that has been, of course, because I'm a coach, and so I've seen it in my own clients. I see it in my family. I see it in my friends, in my community, and I'm just more, I just really feel that this is such an important conversation, which is why I continue to bring you back.
Yeah.
Now, as for a podcast, I have lots of repeat listeners, but I also have a lot of new listeners who may not have any experience of you and your work. So I think we should start maybe just laying the foundation for them with who you are and what you do in the world. Let's start there. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about that.
Let's see if I get it right today. There's so many ways to start, right? So,
who am I now?
Yeah. So by trade, I went into the world similar to you in exercise science and fitness, applied human nutrition, sports nutrition. In my 20s, I was working in a highly athletic world, ski resort, that kind of thing. Whistler, for those that know it. And I got plagued with tons of injuries, which I'm still working with to this day, as you know. But that got me really interested into the mind-body connection. And it made me see how a lot of my training, and there's a point to this part of the story, all my traditional classic university training, while it was a great learning experience and it taught me a lot, it didn't actually teach me how to work with the human body and help it heal.
Yeah.
In terms of like troubles and injuries and things that are really complex. So the first thing I often say is I'm an expert in neuroplasticity, working with that mind-body connection. And then one step further is working with the environment, which is very unique to the work I do in the realm of, and I'll name drop some things right now. The Feldenkrais method is what I studied after classic exercise science, biomedical science, health science, so I've got all those things under my belt and a master's degree in research. So I've done that academic world, but it was very clear that the next step was just, smack in my face because I needed it to help my body heal. Got into the Feldenkrais method, totally revolutionized everything I saw about movement. I mean, you're just talking about how you see this dysregulation everywhere. At that time, in 2004, when I did my training, I was like, oh my God, why are we telling people to do this? And why are we having people train their this muscle and that muscle and suck in their gut all the time? And it's, so for whatever reason, I was okay at accepting that what I knew wasn't right anymore. It wasn't enough. Fast forward to 2008 in Feldenkrais practice, still doing fitness. And then just started seeing people whom weren't getting better, even with the more sophisticated mind, body, environment work of the Feldenkrais method. And it was very clear to me that, I have another piece to this puzzle that I don't know. Yeah. And in many ways, Courtney, that's a teaching point, is to really be humble and be okay if you don't know the next thing, right? Because people get into trouble, I have found in my practices, when they can't open up their mind to the possibility that they don't know everything, right? Or that their therapist or their whomever knows everything, and it's impossible to know everything. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And so I got into this work called somatic experiencing because I realized that a lot of these clients that weren't getting better with the stuff that helped me had a lot of bad things that happened to them. Yeah. Whether it was injuries, abuse, accidents. And I didn't have the skill to work at that fine-tuned level. And whenever I say that in my mind, I always think of, remember that game Operation?
Oh, yes.
Like it'd be great. It'd be interesting to play it now because we did it when we were young, when maybe our motor skills weren't so great.
It felt so hard.
I know. And I'm like, maybe it wasn't that hard, but it's like the fine-tuned element of how to work with the system. And I don't mean at that operation level. However, in the work that I do now with my students who are mainly online, sometimes group, we are working at that organ level. We're working at that deep internal level of the body, of the nervous system, but also the patterns that we've held as a result of our unique human experience. Yeah. And so what I do is not, I'm just a doctor or I'm just this. I am working essentially at helping people learn how to become their own medicine. It's like my favorite thing to say, become your own medicine, with this whole body organism that we have in a way that is, in my opinion, beyond just somatic work. And I still don't know exactly how to convey that in an elevator pitch.
In less than 5 seconds, how do you get across?
Yeah, because as you said, when you were introing this talk, there is so much dysregulation around us that we actually don't know we're in it. And so unless we've awakened, if you want to use that word, to the fact that we have some issues at this nervous system level, individually, globally, a person won't see why this is important. And so it's kind of interesting because the reason why, and you know this with your work, trying to get people to do preventive work can be really tough because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. And a lot of...
Or it could just be solved superficially with what I'm putting in my mouth.
Exactly. Yeah. And so with this, what I find is typically people don't seek this until they are so far gone.
Yeah.
And they've I just had a video from one of your peers in Smart Body, Smart Mind. She had seen 70 practitioners post-traumatic brain injury after a car accident. None of it helped. I mean, it helped, but she was still not well.
Yeah.
And then she found the work that you've done, and within 6 months, she was able to get out of her wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's and I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not giving her a potion, right? Mm-hmm. She's doing the work. Yeah. So, but it's almost like there needs to be enough of I'm really struggling. But my hope, having come from fitness and nutrition, where you're trying to get people to do some maintenance and prevention, it's wow, if we could really teach this stuff early to young mothers. It doesn't have to be to young mothers and young folk, but because anybody can do this work, as you know. I think one of our oldest is in their 80s in the course. But it's the sooner we can do this, the easier the process will be of living and working on all the conditioning and all of the weird ways that we've learned to navigate this very modern, industrialized tech world.
Well, and the less years you're practicing that dysregulation, right? Because I see this all the time in my own work. The more someone has practiced a certain behavior, the trickier it is to unwind. It doesn't mean it can't be unwound. It's just hard. And I also want to back up to something you said, because I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And I think this was part of my resistance to nervous system work to begin with, is that it is so complex in that there are so many layers. There are so many things that influence the nervous system. There are so many things that the nervous system influences. And it isn't a simple sort of one part conversation. It's an ecosystem.
Yes.
And ecosystems, just again, they're complex, and every piece of the ecosystem affects all other parts.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's kind of if you look at it, right, from the bird's eye perspective, it can be daunting.
Yeah.
But the practice of entering, which you're so brilliant at helping people do, if you enter it through the right point, it can be. And again, titrating is something that you talk a lot about. We practice the right amount, the right skill sets. For where I'm at in my life. And that's kind of a gateway to learning how to become my own medicine, right? Really honoring what I can handle at this point in my life, which I will say, I think for a lot of people is less than they would like to be able to handle. A lot less.
I'm thinking of two stories right now. So I want to address the ecosystem one in a second, because that is so important. I've been using that as an analogy recently.
Okay.
But it's true, as I talk to more of your peers whom have been, masters at they say masters at meditation, breath work, all these things. And then they're like, I could only do 5 minutes of that first thing. And I was like, stop, I'm feeling too much, right? Yeah. And it's not because I'm asking someone to stand on their head or anything like that. And we're literally just asking, if we think of the basic practice of connecting to the environment, it's quite simple. Animals do it every day, all the time. Children looking around, babies, they just, you've had a baby, they're just oh, what's going on out here? And then you ask an adult who's super trained in these practices of meditation and mindfulness, and they have a freak out because they've actually, and this isn't a hit against those practices just don't know yet. It's wow, I have been doing these diligent practices that I thought were bringing me to a higher level of healing, but really they've been masking what has been internal and inside really cleverly. And you're right. These things are sometimes slower than we want them to be. And the people who do well really acknowledge that, and they have humility in it. And they go, okay, I think I'm going to really listen to what the teachers are saying and pause and step away from the computer and have a walk or make a cup of tea or watch a funny movie. Whereas a lot of our conditioning, Courtney, and this is something I've been talking about a lot this year, is school system.
I know.
like, I almost think there needs to be a prep course just on that alone in some ways, because the way we've been taught to push, you got to get the assignment in, even if it's shit. If you fail, no one's going to help you figure out why. No one's going to help you learn better. It's like, yeah, you failed. You're not good at this. Move on to the next subject. And it's poisoned the ability for us to learn in a curiosity-driven way, which is, again, what the toddler is so good at. But man, how early do we mess that up? And so when you start to get an adult to understand the layers of conditioning that have been happening since even inception, and how mama might have been restricting what baby needed because of all the rules she was given by all the books and the pediatrician, you kind of go, you have to be really like almost humorous with it, because you can have an existential crisis if you're not careful.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like I have built this community that's all about, the whole objective behind it is self-leadership, right? Is really helping women to make strong decisions about their life and feel comfortable in their own bodies. And it's so interesting when people come into what we call the arena. They want like the curriculum. They want to know, like, when am I supposed to have the assignment done? Where am I supposed to be along the trajectory? This woman's a little further ahead than me, so I'm going to make that mean something, like I'm behind. And it's like, oh my gosh, you have to leave all of that at the door. Because your journey is your journey. And so you can make it all of those things and put all of that excess pressure. And I bring this up too, because I've been through Smart Body, Smart Mind, which is your course. And it's interesting because it's laid out over the course of 12 weeks. And here I am 2 years later, still working my way through and revisiting things and like seeing things very differently every time I do revisit them. And it's more of a process that you're inviting us into. And this is like this incubator that you're holding us in. But I feel like it's beautiful because there's structure to the space. But there's also freedom to make it your own experience, which you actually talk about a lot in the course.
And it's reminding me of my grade 11, 12 high school was like 2,000 people. It was huge. And the motto then was freedom with responsibility. And what was interesting about this high school is that there were no bells.
Oh, interesting.
There were blocks A to F. That started at 8 a.m. and the last block was at 4. And you might have a block at 8 a.m. and 1 o'clock. Or you might not start till 2. Or one semester you'll have a full day, and the next semester you might have 2 classes. And that worked well for some. Didn't work so well for a lot of people because they just didn't have that discipline. They didn't know how to check the time. It was really interesting, but it was still structured. Class was happening. You still had to show up, And so with SPSM and really my other programs that like the 21-day nervous system tune-up, we have to structure it or else it's not contained.
Of course.
And, there has been some asking like, Irene, why don't you have this be just an ongoing yearly membership? I'm like, people won't do the work. I don't want to be on 12 months a year constantly. I don't want my team to have like, they'll never get a holiday. So it's kind of like we structure it as a semester. I think I like the university terms, right? It's like a semester but it's self-learning. And you get to where you get. And if you are tormented by that, then that's the piece that you have to work on. Right? Because we've had people that have pushed and been the good student, and they've actually, to say blow up their system is a bit too harsh, but they've not grown the regulation that they could have if they had just stuck with like maybe the first 2 modules for like 3 months. Which is so okay. I mean, we're going into the 12th round of this, and I am still connected with people who did the course before it was any of what it is now. And it's like, and they're still, it's not that they're doing it to the same degree, but it's like a martial art. You talk to anyone who's a black belt, they are more humble than the white belt. It's like, I'm always learning. There's always something to figure out. Yes, I'm a master, but there's always a little tweaks that I can make to improve and grow that capacity.
Yeah. I love it. I actually appreciate that it's set up the way it is because, like you said, there's like this 12 weeks of more support, right? If should you
Yeah.
need it, the calls and all the things. And there is, like you said, that container. But then there's this period of practice, and then you get to keep coming back to it because once you're in the course, you're forever in the course. And this is the first year you're launching it twice in a year.
It's the first time we've launched it twice in about 3 years.
In 3 years, okay.
Back in the day, it was twice. But now we have the team and the capacity, and so we're going to see. And honestly, there were a lot of folks that didn't get into the registration in last March or February that were a little bummed. And I'm like, and we got enough of that I was like, okay, I think we can do this again this year and see what happens.
Love it.
There was also a little turmoil going on in the world in February this year.
Yeah.
So it's like there was a bit of a chaotic edge, and I kind of feel like there's a little more of a settling.
Yeah.
And I think globally, while it's individual work, we do feel what's going on in the external. Mm-hmm. But as you said at the very beginning, like, having this on board, it helps you be in a world of chaos, and it makes it such that you do not connect and mesh with it.
Yeah. And
I think what has occurred for so many, not just the last 2 years, but like for their lifetime, is they're in this spin cycle with things that they can't control.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, as simple as this sounds, as a human that is solo, the only thing you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
If you have little people, like dependents, who are not teenagers yet, you can still work with, not that you can't work with a teenager, but like those are your responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it's like, being able to just work on yourself and see, I mean, you probably have some stories, Courtney, the ripples. Mm-hmm. When you have more regulation in your system and you see the way that others, whether it's your kid, your dog, your spouse, like I've had 2 stories in the last couple of weeks where your student or your peers are like, I don't fight with my husband anymore.
Yeah.
Or I don't fight with my ex anymore, co-parents, right? Yeah. And they're like, it's insane. And it's amazing because now that stress isn't going on to the kids. And we know that when parents are fighting, the kids, they shut down.
Absolutely.
They keep it together, or they think that they're the reason for that. And it's never the case.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I was really a newbie at the whole nervous system conversation, and we, started talking about macro and micro trauma and how that disrupts the nervous system. My go-to was like, yeah, sure, we all have micro trauma for sure, because we live in a traumatic world. I mean, our lifestyles are traumatic.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I completely did not connect a lot of my characteristics as being dysfunctional, like being an overachiever, like kind of just feeling like I was in a constant state of agitation.
Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
Just feeling perpetually in tension.
Yeah.
Which of course leads to reactivity, lots of reactivity. Which doesn't bode well for my life or anyone's life in my vicinity. And ultimately just this space, which I see so many of my clients doing, where we normalize stress.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're so in it.
We're just not.
We are so living in the ecosystem of stress that we can't even see how dysfunctional it is.
Yeah.
And I know that starting to do your work and just being a part of your world and learning as a student really helped me to, the best word I can use is soften. Right? Like, I just feel like it helped to round out my edges.
Yeah.
And it really just felt, do you know Naraya Wayeed? She's a poet. Oh my gosh, she writes beautiful things. But she has a poem that says, you don't have to be a fire for every mountain that's blocking you. You can be a water and soft river your way to freedom.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. And that it always makes me think of my work with nervous system regulation, because I feel like that's what it's allowed me to do. It's allowed me to soft river my life.
Yeah.
And certainly I can relate to that. Like I think I was always looking for a fight in a way. I don't.
Well, you're a strong lady, so it makes sense. No, but what you said is actually I might have to get that poet reference.
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
What you just said is quite universal in the elements, like, because we need to have anger when we need it.
Yeah.
But then when our babies are hurt and need us, we need to soften.
Yeah.
Whereas when we just have one motto, like, you're fine, it's like, you're fine. It's like, no, they're not fine. And I mean, that's one of the biggest micro traumas that I think so many of us dealt with, is we're feeling this, this upset. And the big person there has no capacity to shift and change and attune to that. And then what does that do? It makes us a certain way only. And then all this talk of, it's genetic. It's like, to a degree, yes, I have brown hair, you have blonde. That's not changing, right? Yeah. But these pieces of us that are so immutable, like, oh my goodness, it has to do with that. So the elements, we need the fire, we need the solid earth, we need the flow of the emotions, the water, and then like that ether, the energy, the spirit, which a lot of students say they get that spiritual connection more, not in a God sense necessarily, or it might be, but with the planet. And then the wind, like, that's another element. Not that I teach that in the class, but for those that see maybe from that Chinese medicine elemental point of view, when you get regulation back on board, we see we are nature. Like, we have all those elements, not just physically, but in how our emotions are meant to be.
Absolutely. And I also think it allows us to see options.
Yes.
Right? Like, that for me has been one of the biggest gifts.
Yes.
Is like, anger is not just a shield for protection, which is what I used it for years, right? It was just my armor. If I was pissed, I didn't have to feel anything else. And now I feel like anger is almost like a Sherpa back to my values. It's reminding me what's important to me. And that's why I'm bothered.
Yeah.
And when I can see it through that lens, I can come up with a creative solution, and I can approach whatever the problem is or the thing I'm angry about in a way that's very healing and constructive.
Yeah.
Versus before, it was the total opposite. It was destructive. So I do think that options is what it's afforded me, is just knowing that I could use this energy, which is the same energy.
Yeah.
Right? I could use this energy to really screw up my life and make some choices that are not going to be so easy to bounce back from. Or I could use this energy to find my way back to where I really want to be living and try to remedy whatever it is in front of me that's so upsetting to me. And just knowing that I have options, you can't close that box once you open it.
No. And what you're speaking to right there is the classic shift from living in, we could say, survival to living in more human-based, like, living, in that we need those survival mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
Your son or someone is in trouble, you're going to go into go mode. And it's not the time to feel, that you're hungry, or that
Right. Let me have a snack first, honey.
I need to have a snack first. Or that you were a bit sad about some sad news that you just heard. Like, your survival mechanisms will go, and we need that. Yeah. But then the option piece means that you're now living from a state of higher brain.
Yeah.
But still able to feel the survival and it's mammalian, it's animal physiology that is in us. And this is like the dicey, tricky thing that humans, I think, have been trying to figure out, at least since we started trying to heal our brains and minds who knows when that really started, effectively. But if we can't connect the two, right? I think what's occurred over I'm at an age where I kind of know what happened in the 60s with the whole movements and all that, but that was like explosion of love and free and all this, but it was it was uncontained.
Yeah.
Right. And then we kept looking for, and then it was, fitness and nutrition in the 80s, and then, aerobics, and then the 90s, and then it was mind body and more coursed. And then, oh no, the mind body is enough. Now we have to do plant medicines. That's not enough. Now we need to do this. And we're looking for that peace or that freedom. But the thing is those practices are all wonderful. But again, if that nervous system is not in our awareness, and this is in a way, not that I've ever had a debate on this, but if I were to have a debate with someone about, well, just put a human in the natural world, just put them in the woods with the earth, with the animals, and people are getting there's people wanting to live that way again, which is really cool to see. However, because of the higher brain, you could be in that garden and in nature and be miserable.
Yeah.
Because you have this higher brain that is still working, perhaps from a wiring perspective of the upbringing, of the traumas. And so you have to be doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
You got to go into nature, but you can still do so much work in the middle of a city.
I don't know
that
why
makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yes. And it also makes me think about how much stock we seem to put in thinking about the body versus being in the body, which I think your work is so great at bringing us back to, right? It's very much a practice of being comfortable in your skin, in your body, with whatever the emotional landscape is at the time. And you said this before, but I really want to have you elaborate on it. You mentioned the building capacity and expanding capacity. And I again, because it's an ecosystem, that capacity is being built on so many levels. Can you just speak to that a little bit? Because I think it's such an important concept.
That's such a hard one, Courtney.
Teach it to me like I'm 5.
I will. No. So I'm going to bring in that ecosystem thing you mentioned at the top of our talk. So I don't know the exact story of this, and I should probably look it up, but I heard through something online that I think it was Yellowstone, so not too far away from you.
Yeah, no, it's just down the street.
Yeah, so jealous. They brought in, was it wolves, to an area that had been totally barren and not ecosystem healthy. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know these words. And over time, with the introduction of that predator, I think is what happened, it shifted the balance.
Yeah.
And the rivers got more proper, and the vegetation, and it's like a regenerative farm.
Yeah.
So if you think of something like you have this barren piece of earth and there's no minerals in it, there's no moisture, there's no worms, there's no microbes, you can't grow food in that. There's no capacity, right? You have to work with it. You have to build the soil. You have to bring in things to change it. You have to tend to it. You have to water it. You might need to take out some invasive weeds and all the things, right? Yeah. I think most people, even if they haven't done a garden, they get it. And then once that soil has life and capacity, you can plant the seeds, and of course you still have to tend it and water and sun, and then things grow. And then the next year, it's easier because you've done that initial work. Yeah. And so when it comes to the human system, again, I'm generalizing here, but for most people who haven't actively done this level of work, their capacity is quite small. You might have that garden and have all the fancy equipment around it, but if that soil isn't prepped and ready, it's not going to make any difference that you have all the equipment. to garden and to farm,
Yeah.
right? So building capacity in the human system means really reconnecting to parts of the body that honestly nobody has ever taught us to do as adults, but it's what should have happened when we were infants.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, when you had a fuss, were you attended to by mom or caregivers so that you could feel that fuss and feel her or his
simultaneously
chillness? That's co-regulation. And then that brings you down. That is building capacity. That's building regulation, self-regulation. And so part of building capacity as an adult, because we can't go back to age 1 or day 1, as adults, we have to actually do that with ourselves. We have to, it seems so basic, but we have to just feel our feet on the floor. We have to actually sense, am I sitting here? Am I even here?
Yeah.
Can I tell that there's this to my side and that to my side, and it's sunny and I can hear the crow in the background and all these sorts of things. So this it's an awareness. Building capacity is building awareness, but it's not just this free floating awareness that we might bring in say Vipassana meditation, where we're just noticing things.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples I can give around building capacity around, let's say, sensation in the body, because part of this work is building the capacity to feel sensation, is not let's figure out your biggest trauma, right? Because as you know, we never ask anyone in any of the courses, what screwed you up the most?
Yeah.
We never do it. People can offer that when they share their stories, and that's great. But like my favorite example, you stub your toe on the coffee table, right? And it hurts, it stings, it's like, ow. In that moment, that is an entry point to practice. You don't need to sit on a fuzzy cushion or do anything crazy. You just stubbed your toe or you just burned your finger on the toaster. That is your cue to pause, feel your feet. Here I am. It stings. And to sense the qualities through the body, because there is a survival response. There will be an autonomic nervous system response to that hit, that imprint, an opening of the skin. As you know, the immune system kicks in. So there's so many opportunities to build capacity to be with the sensations. Mm-hmm. And a person can do that. Like as soon as you guys listening this have heard this, the next time, I hope you don't, but you will,
Yeah, it's coming.
You'll bump your elbow. You'll slam your finger in a window. I got my finger trapped in my pannier bag yesterday. I was like, what's going on? And it's a moment to just feel it. It doesn't mean you have to drop everything necessarily. Like if you're tending to your children, don't just drop them and feel your body, like within reason. But that pausing, even if you're pausing through movement and feeling, is bringing you back to maybe what never happened when you were little. Mm-hmm. And those moments when you were little, when you weren't allowed to feel these things, over time, that is what dysregulates us.
Yeah.
That is what moves us away from sensing our true nature. Mm-hmm. And as odd as it is, it's like, well, gosh, Irene, what? I'm just going to feel my toe when I stub it and that's going to heal all my trauma. Mm-hmm. Kind of. In a very microcosm way, it'll build these layers.
And I'm assuming this is very intentional, right? That we start with sensations, mm-hmm. just of feeling feet and the orienting and all of these things, because it's a gateway to getting to other things that we have more discomfort around, like emotion.
Yeah. So we do that as, I like to say, it's the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of nervous system health basics, right? Like we got it before you speak a language, you need to understand the letters, for instance. So the sensation of the stubbing the toe, orienting is connecting to the environment, because some stub their toe, they don't feel anything. And that's true. And it's not because there isn't a response. They're numb to it.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
there's thousands of women out there who never know, like they have to pee all day and they never
well,
go, or they always say I'm never hungry, or right, there's like
yes,
this, and it's not that their body isn't sending them signals
they're
that,
cut off.
yeah,
They were cut off. And so, yes, so what occurs is, let's just say those are the basics, the easy, rope skills of this mountain climb, so to speak. And then what that does is it's opening up the capacity to feel, so that when we start working with deeper theory, because the theory is actually really important to, in some ways, activate the memories. And when I say memories, I don't just mean thought memories, but body memories, somatic memories, the procedural memories that are trapped from the movements that we might not have been able to do when we had an attack or an injury or a surgical procedure that we didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
So with that capacity, the body, and again, I wish I had a way to study this, but we just don't have the tech to do this. But something in the system goes, oh my goodness, Courtney has a bit more capacity.
Yeah.
Holy, we've been waiting for this for a long time. We're gonna give her a shoulder pain from the time she never tended to that shoulder injury when she was 25.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next day with this like pain and you're like, I didn't do anything. What's happening?
Yeah.
But because you're now learning about the theory, you can sit down, lay down, do one of the lessons, touch, working with whatever it is that we work with. There's so many things that we teach.
Yeah.
And tune in and start to feel the fascial tension.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe as you feel that fascial tension, you feel your breath get a little, and because don't breathe through it, stay with the tightness, but also feel the ground. I'm here. It's August, blah, blah, blah. I'm safe. I'm good. But oh my God, I think my shoulder's going to explode. Oh my God, it did. I dislocated it. I completely forgot. I fell off my bike on that mountain biking trip, whatever.
Yeah.
And then oddly, there can be shaking. There can be heat. There can be tears.
Yeah.
No one was there. I had to push my bike, 10 kilometers back to my car. And you had to do it because you had to get back to your car. So you didn't have time to process that stuff. So that's like a little arc of how I've got shivers right now thinking about it. Like that's like an arc of how building capacity with those simple things gives the system some kind of cue that says we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready to pop this through.
Mm-hmm.
But then because you've done the education, that it's not just a muscle that needs to get massaged out. Like there's something bubbling.
I love this perspective because I think it's almost an invitation to pain, which sounds terrible. But I work with, a lot of women who, I think partly it's the population I work with because I work with midlife. I work with mainly women over 40, 45 years old. And I think it's a really interesting time in life because we're dealing with the most stressors, probably the most nervous system dysfunction we've ever had in some ways.
Yeah.
And of course, our hormones are shifting. So we're losing capacity on that level as well. So of course, we're more prone to injury.
Yeah.
And we're more prone to maybe having some of this stuff boil up that we haven't processed before.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm coaching a woman on, who is in pain, it sounds so terrible to say, well, let's look at the bright side of pain. But what I mean by that is, what is the invitation here?
Yeah.
Right? It's to be with it. And the one beautiful thing about pain is that it forces us to be in the present.
It sure does.
Yeah. Like you are here now, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
But yeah, I hadn't heard that explanation before. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, we could take what I just did with that example of the mountain bike accident and it's like a proxy for all sorts of other things. Like it doesn't have to be a shock trauma, like dislocating your shoulder.
Yeah.
It could be all those times, your fifth grade teacher screamed at you in front of the class because you didn't realize that you needed glasses and you couldn't see the blackboard. It could be all the times that you felt unsafe driving in the car because your parent was drunk. Heard that one before, you know, and like the terror and just the bracing of waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah.
You know, like the stuff that kids and adults, but really kids, like so much of this is laid when we're little. And often it's not because our parents are, of course, there are instances where, yes, there is horrific abuse and violence. And I know those stories. But often, Courtney, those adults know. There's like they're like, yeah, I was really, that wasn't good. They know, but it's the perfect household. it's the, you know, everyone's fine. Everyone's fine. Even though mom just got a cancer diagnosis and she's fine. You know, it's like, no, she's not fine. And why did that happen? What was she? We know now that a lot of that is due to suppression, oddly, of anger, you know? And so when we start to see how, it's quite sad, really, you know, how up until now, many of our parents and even many in our generations and our grandparents before, they never, ever felt what regulation and being connected to their body was. It's sad. But we have to go, okay, that was their path. If you believe in soul and that was, you know, and maybe they'll come back and do it again. And now here we are in the year 2022. We know darn well what to do to heal that. I know.
Yeah.
I now, like, I used to be a bit shy, Courtney, about saying that. It's like, no, I've heard too many stories, talked to too many of your peers, yourself included. It's like, this is really the part where we have to pick up and put together the pieces so that we don't keep repeating these cycles.
Yeah. Well, and you know what makes it, what totally came to mind as you were talking through all that is just our legacy. This is our unseen legacy.
Yeah.
Right? Like people are always like their wealth building and all, they're like, what are you leaving behind to be remembered by? And it's like, no, what responsibility are you taking for the energy you leave behind?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like that's what this work is.
Yeah.
And whether you have children or not, right? We're such communal creatures and we're all being affected by the energy around us all the time.
Oh yeah.
And it is, I'm such an optimistic person. It drives my husband crazy because he's like totally the opposite, which is probably why we're together. But I do feel maybe it's, you know, post-COVID and just the state of the world the last couple of years, but it does, I've had more anxiety about it than I have probably ever had because I see so much dysregulation around me.
100%. And, you know, to do like a macro sweep of the world, no one will hurt another person or do something bad or heinous if they're connected to their body.
Yeah. And
that's the part that, because people talk about empathy and empathy is, yes, it's empathy, but it's also this, like, you need to be, empathy comes from the body because it means you're feeling what another person might feel or is feeling. And we think about the things that just keep happening that just like, oh, we have to change this law. It's like, well, yes. And we need to also work with the human individual because this wouldn't have happened if that person was healthy. And it doesn't mean they're perfect.
Of course not.
It means that when they're feeling something intense, they go and get help.
Yeah.
But we've demonized getting help. You know, I just had one of my best friends is or a retired military pilot. And I got a text from him last Friday on another red eye to another memorial because one of his buddies, as he called it, took the easy way out. He ended his life. I have heard my friend talk about these, like I've heard so many of these stories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he, you know, my friend was angry. You know, I don't know if he left behind kids or a wife, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, he really didn't have the capacity to know how to be with or ask for help. And I just think about it. I'm like, man, we've been through so many world wars. The PTSD thing came out after Vietnam. Like, why haven't we helped in this respect these individuals, it's like we know exactly what they need, but they're still getting talk therapy. They're still doing exposure therapy. And it's like, wow. And it made me really sad last weekend because he knows my work. And it's like, why can't we make these connections?
I know. But think of what it is. It's like you're literally giving people the tools to become their own medicine,
Yes.
which is not lucrative, Irene, right? I mean, there's a lot of money to be lost
If only
there.
I could put in a pill and just transmit that through your brain.
Right?
I know. Oh, I know.
Then we'd be all over it. But heaven forbid we give people responsibility.
Ability.
And also, the other unsexy part of this is that, yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a practice. And yes, that requires discipline,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's all of these things, which I think are all just really a lost art in our world today. So it's like we're reteaching, first probably teaching for the first time some of these things, but also reteaching some things that I think that we have just lost focus on because we are so distracted and we are so busy and we're so freaking tired.
Yeah. And I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt because what you said there was actually quite brilliant in that I actually don't think this is a lost art. Because when people were healthy and living off of the land, and I don't mean like in the 1500s, I mean like 10,000s of years ago, right? Like with woolly mammoths and all those sorts of things. We didn't have this stuff. Like we really were natural. Mm-hmm. We also probably died a lot younger due to all sorts of things.
Not having all these modern amenities.
We might have frozen to death because the temperature dropped too low, right? But I think it's so interesting is because I think what we're trying to do right now has never happened before.
Yeah.
And I like technology.
Yeah.
I like watching me some Avengers at night to have a little fun. Like, I don't want that to go away.
No.
But then we have to go, okay, and we have to balance that out.
Yeah. And it's regulation. I mean, it's all regulation.
Yeah. So I think I get excited. I also have my moments where maybe like your husband, I see something, I'm like, come on, especially dog poop. It's like, really? Like I live near a park and I like to walk bare feet and I have to do a scan. It's like, it's not right. But then I'm human too. I get pissed off at things, right?
Yeah.
So,
because you obviously value park space that doesn't have dog poop everywhere.
But here's the thing, Courtney, as silly as that example is, what compels someone to not be responsible for their pet? Yeah. Knowing that could actually make someone sick, a kid walking around, hands in their, So it's like those little things show us that we still have a long way to go. But also, and I tweeted this the other day, it's like we actually have gone quite far. If I think about the amount of people now who understand and can speak eloquently, ventral vagal, low tone dorsal, all the things that you've learned. When I hear your peers talk about, I'm like, oh my God, yay. They're talking about their nervous system in ways that a lot of psychotherapists have no clue. Yeah. It's so cool.
So cool.
And they're not doing it like with this, look at what I know. They're like, I think I'm going into a little dorsal shutdown right now. Okay. But because they know what it means, it takes the sting out of it. Yeah. It's just what their body is doing.
Yeah. And it's like the butterfly effect, right? You have this small pod that starts to change how they're moving through the world, which then filters into every interaction they have in the day. Yeah. And I do think we're always on some level co-regulating. I mean, I see it if my husband comes home in a bad mood, which is hardly ever. But if he comes home in a bad mood, or my son's really upset about something, I want to take that on, or I feel it in my own body. Yeah. And conversely, if I'm having a bad day, I can just sit next to my dog, who's like always blissed out. And it's like, immediately decompressing. Yeah. So, all right, let's tell people how they can actually dive into this work, like what is coming up, and tell them a little bit about that.
So, as we've talked about, we're running Smart Body, Smart Mind again this year. I don't know when this one's going to go live, our talk, but the 13th of September is when we open up registration. we're going to have a very short registration window until the 19th.
Okay.
So it's like a week. So what I suggest people do is they get on the wait list, depending on when they are hearing this. If you're on our email list, your email list, you'll email your people, right? Yeah. We are doing something a little different this year. We're doing a kind of a pre-education. We're calling it the Essentials. And from, if I can get the dates right, the 9th of September through to the 13th, I'll be teaching every day on Zoom the basics. I'm calling it the essentials. What the nervous system is, what the different branches are, what capacity built. I'm going to do the swimming pool analogy, which is like the best. Going to talk about sabotage as one of the topics and how that connects to the nervous system, because it does. And then what my kind of bread and butter is the sequencing, the stages of neuroplastic healing, which is really kind of like the crux, the holy grail that I believe sets apart what I've put together compared to a lot of other, we could call them brain retraining programs, because there might be people that are like, well, how is this different than just working with the limbic system? And I say it this way: if you were to try to build a car from the ground up, you're not just going to focus on the timing belt.
Right.
You need all of it. Right. And so one of the biggest, I would say, foundational differences from Smart Body, Smart Mind, or even the 21-day nervous system tune-up, it's a beautiful lead into that, is that we're not just working with the timing belt. We're not just working with the limbic system. We're working with the entire body. Yeah. And that requires a sequencing of healing. And so in Smart Body, Smart Mind, and I'll talk about it in this essentials piece, we're layering these foundations so that we can create this ecosystem that's healthy and whole. And so, the 13th closes the 19th. We go obviously into December for the 3 months. There's weekly training calls with me. My husband does great Q&A calls. The curriculum is quite vast. And as you know, it's not just the basics. We're working with anger and shame and the body and the gut and the brainstem and movement. We're bringing the Feldenkrais in. So we're really hitting the body with all these different juicy elements that, from, again, experience, it works when you're bringing all these pieces together.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited because I have had so many students go through it.
Yeah.
I've gone through it. So anyone listening who, just can resonate with what we have spoken about today, which I'm sure is everyone on some level. I was going to ask you, one of the questions I had written down was, who's exempt from this work? I know the answer. Nobody.
Well, I'll say there'd be one type, but that person probably isn't watching this.
Okay.
And that would be someone who really is mentally unstable and cannot even get out of, I shouldn't say get out of bed, because we've had people who've been bedbound. True story. People that are really psychiatrically compromised. Yeah. And again, not just a little bit of, depression or even severe, like you don't know where you are in the day. Yeah. And I think that there's potential for someone who's living with that level of dysregulation to heal with this, but this is self-study. Yeah. They need a different layer of support. You got to show up for yourself. And, that being said, we've had some people who have hired coaches to help them go through the program. Yeah. So they do the program and, of course they have the means to have a little extra support, and they have that accountability, because we're accountability to you guys is through emails and live calls, but we can't be cheerleading every single person. Sure. Yeah. That's where you come in. Yeah. Do Smart Body, Smart Mind, and then work with Courtney one-on-one, and you've got the magic deal right there. The magic deal, yes. Oh, I love it. Well, I know that my community is very familiar with who you are, and part of the reason I just consistently bring you back is because I feel so strongly now, of course, more than ever, because I'm more educated, that this work is so foundational to the type of work that I do, which is,
we have to get to a functioning level
Yes.
before we can actually climb the mountains we're really here to summit. And, I think for a long time, I just thought, well, everyone should be able to summit. Everyone should be able to climb, right? And completely missing this layer. So here we are. I think our first conversation was 7 years ago? Somewhere.
It was when you just started your show.
Yeah, 7 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know.
Wow, I was only 40 then. That puts it into perspective.
I cannot speak highly enough of the program or, and really just the crux of the work in terms of how life altering it is. Like you will absolutely, if you do the work, find yourself in a more peaceful space. And I think that's ultimately what everyone wants. They just want to feel more peace in their life with how they're living it, with how they're showing up, with how they're responding. And I feel like this just gives us such a great framework for really tapping into that. And
kudos to you, Courtney, because you took this on when you knew that you were pissed off about.
I don't think I had a choice, Irene.
And I think that,
I think I could see, like you were talking about, how people have to just be in so much pain and everyone's pain looks different. But for me, it was just like, I knew it was going to cost me way more than I was willing to spend. If I didn't start healing myself on that level. So
it's so good.
It was definitely hitting that brick wall. Like, okay, like it's time, Courtney.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening on your side, don't let yourself hit the brick wall. If you haven't yet,
oh my gosh, please.
I'm looking at your brick wall behind you.
I know, it's fake.
Oh, it is. Okay. It looks very real.
Well, and some people have to hit the brick wall like 50 times.
Don't do that.
Before they're like finally like, oh, well, maybe I should do something about this.
Yeah. Honest to God, if you haven't hit the brick wall yet, now is the perfect time to do this. If you have hit the brick wall, also do it. But there is something to be said about getting this work under your belt before the system cracks. Because it is that much harder to clean it up once you've gone over that edge. It doesn't mean you can't. You definitely can. Right? But it is, I understand. It's like, oh, no, I'm not that screwed up. I'm going to wait for if you have the capacity and the resources to do this now. A year from now, things will just be so different. And I know that for a fact.
Oh, I do too. And it's just never too soon. It's like saying there's a perfect time to have a child or start a business or whatever it is. There just never is. And a year from now, you'll wish you had started because it is such an ongoing process. And, at least getting that off the ground over the next year will serve you well, no doubt.
And the planet.
So thank you for coming back
You're
for the
welcome.
umpteenth time. We didn't settle on a number, but we know it's a lot.
I know. No, it's great. Yay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.